Well, our special teams, special, exclusive Garnet Trust interviews continue to roll on. We had Mitch Jeter the other day, and today we have the punter for the Gamecocks, Kai Kroeger, joining us. And Kai, I was asking Mitch this question the other day. When you think about special teams players, I'm not talking necessarily about punt returners or kickoff returners, but long snappers, punters, kickers. It's different. It's just different from the recruiting process. You might have maybe once in a blue moon that guy that gets recruited out of high school because he kicked a 60-yard field goal in a game, or maybe he had a video that went viral. But I'm assuming, much like Mitch and much like a lot of other kickers, your process to get to South Carolina was much different than a lot of your teammates that play other positions.
Yeah, for sure. It dates back to probably when I started seriously training and going to showcase camps where they do these rankings. I trained with Cole's Kicking. I know there's a couple others, there's Chris Saylor and stuff like that. So really sophomore year in the winter is when I went to my first showcase camp where they do the rankings. And from then on, it was pretty much every 3 months or so, there's a different camp to attend. And that's when I started a Twitter, because some of my high school teammates that had gotten recruited for other positions had told me, like, Twitter is where it's at. You got to get to Twitter. So then I'm trying to formulate these, specific messages to coaches and just try to get my name out there. But then going to these camps for about 2 years. And then my junior year going into senior year is when I attended the specialist camp. And it was funny because we're trying to figure out, my family and I, which camps to go to because there's so many and a lot of them, intertwined with each other. So I reached out to Jamie Cole, who runs the Cole's Kicking. And he had said, for sure, go to South Carolina on this specific date. He knew Coach Hutzler at the time and said it was a great place to be. He trusted him and said that I should go to the camp. And I believe there was me and a couple other guys that they were looking at, inside of the whole camp itself. And luckily it turned out to be a great day. I got the offer after the camp, and it was just kind of history from there.
Is it as simple as saying that it's similar? There's so many football camps out there these days now, but is that similar, like a defensive back, like a quarterback, like a receiver, where they go out there? And I know for a lot of the coaches, whether it be my old college coaches, whether it be coaches that when I was going through the recruiting process, they're looking for a specific thing. So they're looking for guys that maybe are a little bit quicker, or, whatever they're looking for, the specifics. Then they get the film for them. Is it similar in that regard, or is it more so because as kickers, you're not dealing with the same exact, all right, a quarterback, he might be just going out there throwing a pass around with no shoulder pads on, no helmet. It's Skelly. It's 7-on-7. He's just throwing really on air for the most part. Is it different, though? Is it more so like, hey, we want to see your consistency. We want to see, with the NFL, kickers go, they might only get 5 or 10 kicks to show what they're capable of doing. How can you compare what you had to go through to what some of these other guys go through at other positions and when they go to these camps?
I think definitely for a specialist as a whole, whether it's snapping, kicking, punting, we're so, you get one shot. One of our mottos is one shot, one kill. And it's like that sniper mentality where, you don't really get recognized for doing your job. You really only get recognized if something goes really well or really bad. So for us, it's kind of, no matter what, coaches need to see consistency, over and over again, being able to hit the same ball, being able to go directionally right, directionally left, hit an end over end ball that lands inside the 10, stuff like that. So really it comes down to consistency is pretty much like the most important thing for a specialist. And then also, they're looking at attitudes, after you shank a punt, let's say, or miss hit a kick, do you kind of clap and get down on yourself, and that kind of ruins your mentality? Or do you just say, all right, you don't show any emotion and you just kind of go on to the next kick? And finally, coachability is probably the biggest thing. I can remember Joseph Charlton was at that specialist camp, and he kind of told me to play around with something when we were doing end over end punts, and I did it, and Coach Hutzler was right there watching, and I think it was good to see that I'm listening to these guys that are very successful and being able to work that into what I'm doing to just kind of show that I'm an open-minded player and I'm always looking to get better.
For a guy like yourself, you come in and you're named to the all freshman team back in 2020 for the SEC. What is that like going into that? Because look, people can say what they will about kickers, punters, specialists in general, but kickers are people too, and exactly. That's obviously the old saying. But And all jokes aside, you obviously have a competitiveness to you, or else you wouldn't play football. Going in there as a freshman, what is that mentality like trying to go in there? Especially you had a guy not too long ago in Joseph Charlton who kicked there. And obviously he was playing up the road for a period of time with the Carolina Panthers, knowing that you had a guy like there previously. What's that mentality going in there? And when did you start to feel comfortable? Or is it one of those things you came in there day one and you said, you know what? Yeah, I can be the guy.
I'd say from a competitive standpoint, I kind of knew, going into that position, especially with Joe being there, that, people were looking for, that next great punter at South Carolina for that role to be filled. And there definitely was a lot of added pressure. And I guess coming from a smaller school right outside Chicago, where I was kind of like, didn't really have to compete much, especially at the kicker position or punter. It was kind of something new for me, which took a little bit of adjusting in the beginning. But luckily it was at the time, Christian Kinsley and me were the punters when I got in, and he was great. And, there was never bad blood or anything. And we like to, help each other and compete off each other and stuff like that. So there definitely was that added pressure. And it took I'd probably say, probably after that first game against Tennessee, it wasn't the greatest punting game. And that kind of humbled me and made me realize, all right, like I completed my first game, it's not that crazy, nothing like that. Then I kind of settled in and was able to move up from there.
One of my favorite stats about you has nothing to do with kicking. It's the fact that you've thrown 2 passes, and knock on wood, when that next opportunity to throw a pass, you're 2 for 2 for completions. And of course you threw that touchdown pass last season, that trick play on when you guys threw it down there. Remind me, I believe if I'm not mistaken, you did have some quarterbacking back in your day in high school, correct?
I did, my freshman and sophomore year. Yeah.
Okay. So is it one of those things? I mean, look, obviously it's the SEC and, you're playing in front of much bigger crowds. So the pressure is a little bit different compared to when you're playing in high school. But what is it like, though, that first time you threw that, the first completion, but more so that touchdown pass this year? I'm sure there's some teammates that look at you saying, where the hell did this come from? Because they don't know that you have that background as a quarterback.
I mean, I'd probably say, when we ran out for that fake, in my mind, that's probably more nerve-wracking than going out to punt, whether you're backed up or whatever, because, it's like you're running the fake pretty much no matter what. And, all eyes are on you. I'm the one delivering the pass. And we kind of, obviously we practice stuff. So some guys see some things, but no one really says anything. Like in practice when I would throw it or complete it or something like that. And then, luckily after that touchdown, then all of a sudden people start coming up to me and, when are you going to join the QB room, stuff like that, or how long have you been, throwing the ball? So I'd say questions started coming after the touchdown for sure. And then I kind of had to, back myself up and say that I'm used to this, like I know how to throw a football, fortunately. So yeah, that was awesome.
And the guy that I'm assuming made that call was Pete Lembo. And if it wasn't Pete, it was Shane Beamer, at least one of those two guys. And having the opportunity to learn from two of probably the best special teams minds in the country. I mean, What is that like knowing, number one, you have two coaches that care so much about special teams? And how have you seen the way that Coach Lembo, the way that Coach Beamer, they attack special teams? How have you seen just the players embrace it? Because we know that it's not as easy as for you maybe to go out there and be like, all right, I'm locked in, because I might only have, 4, 5, 6 opportunities. Hopefully not that many opportunities in a day. That means the offense is doing well if you're not going out there too much. But what does that say, though, about those two guys? And have you seen kind of that attitude shift where guys are going out there saying, oh, okay, we have to run out there. This is one play where the ball, exchange hands, in comparison to going out there saying, hey, we can make a difference right here. This is 1/3 of the game.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely been a blessing having Coach Lembo and Coach Beamer, especially with their backgrounds. And just from, looking at the team itself, I remember coming in as 2020 as a freshman. And, guys, obviously special teams was a focus. They didn't just put it to the side, but seeing the difference from then until this past season with Coach Beamer and Coach Lembo was really eye-opening. And, it made me feel more comfortable because, we spend pretty much every single day of practice a good amount of time talking about special teams. And Coach Lembo is always working the protections and, making sure that no one's getting to me on punt and the field goal protection's good and all that stuff. So really I've been able to see from my teammates, they've been putting a lot more effort into it because, they're starting to like it. It's becoming more of their routine instead of, where they're only focusing on, the playbook or something like that. Special teams has been included into their, study, pretty much like their studying plan, and, they love it. And I feel pretty comfortable back there and know that anyone can do it.
You mentioned it a little while ago, being able to learn a couple things from Joseph Charlton. Is there anything specific that you were able to take from his game, maybe just watching him or just being able to work with him every day? Because I think some people just think, all right, the kickers go to practice, they kind of have their own little thing, they go inside the bubble, maybe they'll get a ball and they'll aim at the uprights a couple times for trying to work on their aim. But is there anything specific that he taught you, and being able to work with the guy like that, just how laid back he is? How much did that help you, especially as a young kicker when you first arrived there?
Definitely, I'd say one thing I noticed right off the bat was, how quick he was able to catch the snap and get the laces up if he had to, and then get the ball off. We call it our operation time or hand-to-toe time. That was something that he was always super good at, and, something that, falls on the punter, whether it's a good snap or bad snap, we've still got to have that fast timing and make sure everything's good so we don't get blocked. So that was the first thing I noticed. And then, like you mentioned, that laid back kind of attitude, I've kind of tried to adapt that into my kind of mindset ever since, or probably after a few months of being at college. Because, when I got here, I was super like laser focused, and not that I'm not focused now, but more so like, all I was thinking about was football and like specific kicking things and stuff like that. And, I think that might work for some people, but for me, kind of like taking a step back and, obviously being super focused when it comes time to kick or at practice time. But, when I'm at home, just kind of being laid back, and even at practice, when the time comes, be focused and do my job. But if, let's say, I have a bad kick or anything like that, just whatever, next kick, I'll do my job. I think that's definitely been a huge plus for me to learn from him, just kind of having that mindset.
And then being able to see him obviously go on to go play in the NFL. And we mentioned before being able to have Pete Lembo there, Shane Beamer, two tremendous special teams minds. And then obviously seeing what Parker White was able to do this year. And then you think back to Ryan Suckup and what he's been able to do in the NFL. Is it one of those things, as someone that plays special teams at South Carolina, you just look at all the success the specialists have had, and does it make you want to be able to play up to that level, be able to carry that on? Because, look, we could talk about some of the tremendous players that South Carolina has produced. We can look at running backs, we can look at defensive line, we can look at the secondary, but I feel like one of those positions that kind of gets overlooked, and you can blend the kickers and punters together, is just the specialists and what they've been able to accomplish. There's a lot of great talents in South Carolina players that have come through that have been specialists.
I think seeing, like you mentioned, all these guys that have succeeded and played at the next level and played even long careers in the NFL, like Ryan Suckup and so on, just kind of gives you that confidence that, South Carolina is a place where you can grow as a specialist and have that opportunity to play at the next level. And we play in pretty much the biggest stadiums in the country. So it's almost like, it's like Joe Burrow said, the SEC stadiums, they're much crazier than NFL stadiums. So it kind of gets you prepared, not just from maybe punting specific stuff, but just like atmosphere and mindset. It definitely helps knowing that, I came here, we're a place that specialists have succeeded.
All right, so explain to a guy like myself, and probably a majority of the people watching this, no disrespect to maybe like the 4 or 5 people that were kickers back in high school, but explain to us what that feeling is like when you just get a absolute bomb. You just know it's like a sweet feeling. Is it kind of like going to the driving range and you just have that nice contact and like, all right, oh, that's the one? Or is it one of those things that you have to kind of just see it come off the your foot a little bit? Obviously, people come in, block kicks sometimes, hopefully not too many.
Yeah.
But, when you're going out there, even in practice, is it one of those failings, like kind of like a driver?
Honestly, I think so, from a standpoint of you almost don't even feel it, which at some points, kind of as soon as I hit it, in my mind, there's a split second where I'm like, uh-oh, like, did I just miss the ball? Like, and I think maybe, a lot of times when you hit your best ball, whether it's a kick or punt, you feel like you missed it just because it hits it so perfectly that it just bounces right off your foot. But, for the times that I've had good punts during the season or whatever, a lot of times when I hit it, there's that split second where I worry, and then I look up and see it, and, then it's good feelings from there.
And I've always been curious, because I'm sure every kicker is different, and, routine's obviously a big thing. Depending on maybe the flow of the game, what's kind of like your routine between going out on the field, when there is a change of possession, is there any times that maybe you're not near the net because it was a quick 3 and out? Maybe it's one of those games where the team, the other team's going to go fast. You guys are going fast. Do you just stand by the launch area where the specialists go out and, run out with the rest of the gunners, or are you always trying to do the same thing from a routine standpoint?
So I'm really not too specific with my routine. I kind of base it off how I'm feeling, or how many hits I got in pregame and so on. But normally I'll try to, when our offense gets the ball first and second down, I'll try to go to the net and get a couple of kicks in, whether it's just one steps, just kind of getting my leg loose, or hitting 1 or 2 fulls into the net. And then once I've hit a good one, and this is something that Parker kind of taught me. It's like, once you feel like a good kick into the net, then just kind of stop there and head over to the launch point where we prepare for 4th down. If it comes to that, because, once I hit a good one, then the last kick in my mind felt really good off my foot, and I can just try to go out and repeat it. So I just try to, first and second down, I'll go in, get a couple kicks, but that's pretty much it. And then during the TV timeouts, I'll catch a couple snaps from the snappers on the sideline, maybe get another, a few kicks in, but I try to keep it pretty laid back during the game.
Well, keeping things laid back, I know things are going to pick up for you and your teammates in the next couple of weeks with spring ball right around the corner, which is just crazy to think of that we're already here. Yeah. What has winter workouts been like in terms of, and I know it's such a cliche word, I think I actually said this exactly to Mitch. I said, I know people always just say the word culture, but how have you noticed the culture change in comparison to where it was a year ago as you guys head into this year's spring ball, and just the attitude of this team, being able to come off a big bowl win, to be able to finish over 500, and knowing where the program was a year ago? There was so much uncertainty. Yeah. Even though there's excitement with Beamer, there was still so much like, all right, what is going to happen in year one? So what is that like right now, and just where's the excitement as you guys get ready for practice number 1 come March 15th?
Yeah, I think, I can remember a year ago when winter workouts started, I think guys kind of still had that. Obviously, we were so fired up with the new staff and whatever, but I think still maybe some of that old culture was still lingering, where guys, they wanted to be there, and, they loved it, and they brought that attitude. But there were still sometimes, during the workouts where guys would kind of resist or fight back. But, this year, I feel like after having such a good season from, what we had maybe expected, or what, people were saying around the country, we're even more hungry, which I didn't even know was possible, because I thought last year was crazy enough. But, I see guys, during the workouts, we're going and helping each other. Guys are throwing up, crying, whatever. But, you go over and you put your arm around your teammate and you help him finish through the line or whatever it is. And there's just so much more, I guess, camaraderie. And I've talked to more people this offseason than last season. I feel like everyone's trying to get around and talk to each other so we can become closer. And it's really just been awesome to see that these guys are connecting like that and having that energy for this season.
Now, the last thing I have to ask you, and I promise not to make this a promo, because at the end of the day, this is about the Garnet Trust, but the specialists, including you guys were some of the first people to go out and get the Yuva when it became a thing at Bojangles. So I won't necessarily go down that road, but if there was a sandwich, it doesn't even have to be Bojangles. It could be any fast food restaurant. It could just be kind of a thing that you would just make up. What would be on the Kai Kroeger? What would be on the Kroeger?
Ooh, you really put me on the spot.
I know. I didn't even give you a heads up about this one.
The Kroeger.
It could be a pizza. It could be anything.
I'm going to go. Oh, man. It's going to be. I'll do pizza.
Okay.
It's going to be, being from Chicago, it's going to be deep dish. And it's going to have bacon, ham, sausage, and pepperoni, with extra Parmesan cheese on top. That's going to be mine.
Okay. See, now look, I'm a Village Idiot guy. I don't know if you've been to Village Idiot.
I have not.
I know Brian is a New Yorker. He's a Red Sox fan, so that's how him and I get along. Because if he was a Yankees fan, I'd probably go to another pizza joint. But the deep dish, man, I'm just maybe I'm just a hater. I think that's just a bunch of soup. I'm sorry. I think it's just a bunch of soup. Yeah. It's a bowl. It's got some sauce. It's got some cheese. But it sounds like you're a deep dish guy. You don't like the thin crust, or you don't like that nice undercarriage.
Yeah, I don't thin crust. I just feel like I'm just not getting a lot of food. Like deep dish is just like hearty slices of all this meat and cheese, and it just feels right. Especially since I was eating it since I was young, so it just feels right for me.
I know you definitely have at least one or two you can recommend. I've never been to Chicago. If I go to Chicago, what's one place I have to go get a deep dish?
I would say it's called Ferentino's.
Ferentino's. It's Italian, so at least I'm already, we're already on the right path right here.
That's where you got to go.
Ferentino's. Okay. Anything specific on it, or is it kind of like the way that you kind of described it?
I always just get meat lovers, but I don't know, what you may like. I'm not a big, pineapple or onion guy or whatever they put on that. But no, I'm a big meat lovers guy. I love it.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. I'm going to go back to Boston. I'm going to have an Italian slice at one of my favorite pizza joints, Regina Pizzeria, right next to the Boston Garden with the Celtics and Bruins play. So if you head up that way, maybe we'll change your mind. Maybe you'll become
we'll see.
an old school classic pizza kind of guy. And who knows, maybe I'll have a true Chicago deep dish. And maybe I'll change my mind. Kai, we appreciate it. For anyone that's listening to this, if you want to be able to support Gamecock student athletes like Kai, be sure to check out the Garnet Trust. You can donate anywhere between $1 up to $100 million if you're Rockefeller, whatever you want to do. Every penny goes to these guys to be able to take advantage of this new era of NIL. And on top of that, you have an opportunity to get to meet some of these Gamecock athletes, not just football players, just a little bit more. But it's also pretty nice, too, that you're putting a little change in the back of their pocket. Kai, we appreciate you taking the time. Looking forward to seeing you out there in the next couple of weeks. I just cannot believe spring football is already around the corner, but very excited for you and your teammates.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. Look forward to spring ball.